I understand where you're coming from. But I need you to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah.
WWE Backlash ignited with a thunderous surprise as Jon Moxley made a shocking return, storming the ring alongside Roman Reigns in a moment that sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. The arena erupted as the former Shield brothers stood shoulder to shoulder once more, staring down an unsuspecting Seth Rollins. With fire in his eyes and a microphone in hand, Moxley delivered a blistering promo, calling out Rollins for abandoning his roots and challenging him to a reckoning long overdue. Reigns, silent but intense, nodded in agreement, backing his former ally. The Shield's ghost loomed large as fans chanted in disbelief. Backlash just became ground zero for a battle fueled by betrayal, brotherhood, and unfinished business. Seth Rollins' hard-earned victory. Seth Rollins had just survived an incredible match, an absolute war inside the ring. Battered and bruised, he leaned against the ropes, breathing heavily, still clutching his newly won World Heavyweight Championship. His victory had been hard-earned, a testament to his resilience and skill, but something about the air in the arena felt strange. Even with the championship belt in hand, Rollins was far from at peace. The sense of accomplishment was overshadowed by an unsettling feeling, as if he knew that his journey as champion might be short-lived. He had just overcome an opponent in a match that had pushed him to his limits. But something else loomed on the horizon. The crowd cheered for him, but it wasn't the usual euphoric celebration. Instead, there was a tension hanging in the air. It was as if everyone in the arena could feel that something monumental was about to happen. And then, in a split second, everything changed. The lights go out. The return of Roman Reigns. Suddenly, the lights in the arena cut out, plunging the crowd into darkness. The sound of static filled the speakers, causing the fans to murmur in confusion and anticipation. Then from the silence, a rhythmic heartbeat echoed through the Titantron. The heartbeat wasn't just a sound. It was a foreboding pulse that sent chills down the spine of everyone in the arena. Fans knew the sound well. It was the heartbeat of Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who had dominated WWE for years, the man who had disappeared from the spotlight after his monumental win at WrestleMania. The crowd erupted as Roman Reigns stepped out from the shadows. His presence was undeniable. Clad in black, Roman exuded an intensity and purpose that could only be described as terrifying. His eyes were locked onto Seth Rollins, who stood in the ring, still recovering from his grueling match. For the first time in months, the tribal chief was back, and he wasn't alone. The shock of Jon Moxley's return behind Roman, another figure emerged slowly, deliberately. No music, no flash, just an overwhelming sense of presence. Jon Moxley, the former WWE champion, the wild man known for his unpredictable, chaotic style, stepped into the spotlight. The crowd was stunned into silence. Moxley had left WWE years ago, carving out a legacy for himself in AEW. But his return was not one of nostalgia. It wasn't for a reunion or a handshake. It was for destruction. Moxley and Roman Reigns stood side by side, a pair of fierce, ruthless individuals, both men with a vendetta to settle. The arena froze in shock. It had been over half a decade since the three men of the Shield had shared the same stage, and now here they were. But this was no reunion of brothers. No, this was war, and the very foundation of WWE was about to be rocked. Seth Rollins, ever the master manipulator and strategist, knew exactly what this meant. His confident smirk disappeared as quickly as it appeared. He knew these men. He knew what they were capable of, and more than anyone, he knew what he had done to them in the past. His expression shifted from arrogance to fear, his jaw tightening as he realized what was unfolding before his eyes. A slow march to the ring. No words, just fury. Roman and Moxley didn't rush to the ring. Instead, they moved with slow, calculated steps, each footfall echoing in the arena like a death knell. Seth backed into the corner, bracing for the worst. He knew there would be no negotiation, no words of reconciliation. This was going to be an all-out assault, and he had no idea what to expect. Roman Reigns entered the ring first. No theatrics, no speeches, just a fury that had been simmering for years. Without hesitation, Roman exploded with a spear that nearly broke Seth Rollins in half. The impact shook the ring, and the crowd gasped as Seth gasped for breath, clutching his ribs in agony. He tried to recover, but it was too late. Before he could even attempt to move, Moxley grabbed him by the head and delivered a paradigm shift right onto the championship belt that Seth had fought so hard to earn. Seth lay motionless, unable to defend himself, his dreams of glory crushed in a moment of pure violence. Roman and Moxley stood above him, silent and imposing, like two predators surveying their fallen prey. Roman's words, a shocking declaration. Finally, Roman grabbed a microphone, his voice cold and controlled as he addressed the WWE Universe. His words were sharp, filled with years of pent-up anger and betrayal. He stared down at Seth Rollins, his former Shield brother, and declared that the time for forgiveness was over. The betrayal of the Shield would never be forgotten. Seth, Roman said, had mocked the very legacy they had built together. "You stabbed us in the back," Roman's voice thundered, "and now we're here to return the favor." The crowd was in shock, some chanting for Seth, others for Roman, but the reality of what was happening was undeniable. The story of the Shield, which had once united these three men in battle, was now twisted into a tale of vengeance and retribution. The crowd roared in agreement, and Moxley's words seemed to strike a chord with every WWE fan who had followed this story for years. "Rollins," Moxley continued, "you remember what it felt like, don't you? The night you took a chair to my back, the night you chose ambition over brotherhood. You became a star, but I became a shadow, and now the shadow is here to consume you." A challenge to the visionary. And then came the words that shattered the wrestling world. At Money in the Bank, Moxley challenged Seth Rollins to a one-on-one match. But this wouldn't be just any match. This was a match that would be fought under no disqualifications, no countouts, a match with no rules, a match where anything could happen. It was set to be the final reckoning between Moxley and Rollins, a clash of two men who had once been brothers, but now stood on opposite sides of a bitter war. This wasn't just for the World Heavyweight Championship. This was for redemption, vengeance, and to settle unfinished business that had been simmering for years. The challenge was laid out, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. But Roman Reigns wasn't done yet. With that, Roman raised 3 fingers into the air, a symbolic gesture that left everyone in the arena confused. 3 fingers, a tribute to the Shield. But what did it mean? Was this a sign of unity? Or was it a warning that the final chapter of their brotherhood was about to be written in blood? Seth Rollins, broken but not defeated. As Roman and Moxley left the ring, Seth Rollins was left broken, barely able to sit up, staring at the ramp in disbelief. He had just been laid out by the 2 men who had once been his brothers. But even in his beaten state, he wasn't finished. Seth had survived countless battles, fought off legends, and overcome the odds time and time again. If there was one thing Seth Rollins had in abundance, it was tenacity. But this was different. This was personal. This wasn't just about the World Heavyweight Championship. This was about the ghosts of his past coming back to haunt him. The build-up to Money in the Bank would be explosive. Moxley, with fire in his eyes, had promised the world that he had unfinished business. He hadn't returned for nostalgia, for money, or for a reunion. He had returned to tear down the empire Seth Rollins had built, brick by brick. Moxley had said he didn't need anyone's permission. Not from the locker room, not from the fans, and certainly not from Triple H. He had one goal: to bring justice, to bring reckoning.